Welcome to Andy and Ari on 3. And yeah, we're getting political today. We have to, because politics is invading our safe space here.
Politics.
Bubble.
Politics.
Presidential Commission, a blue ribbon panel to talk about the future of college sports. So Donald Trump creating a commission co-chaired by Nick Saban. You all know who he is. Cody Campbell, you may not know who he is, but we've actually talked about him on the show before. He is a Texas Tech former player and donor, current donor, who made billions in the oil and gas industry. And he's been very outspoken about all of this stuff, saying that there needs to be a congressional solution. He's got a lot of ideas. I don't think his ideas are the same as Nick Saban's ideas, which will make this very interesting. The thing to remember about all this stuff is all politics are local. The other piece to remember about this is we don't really know how this is going to manifest itself. Is it going to manifest itself in a Donald Trump executive order? Is it going to manifest itself in them trying to get Congress to pass a law or to create legislation that would govern college sports? We don't know. Is it a case where, like a lot of times in college sports, somebody forms a committee and then nothing happens? That's also a possibility.
I do feel like somewhat amused, but maybe it'll be healthy that the thing that Nick Saban probably wants to stop is also on the board with him.
What is that?
Oil baron money building a roster by throwing cash around.
But that's not what Cody wants. You got to read what Cody's written.
Yeah.
Cody's written several essays on this topic. Now, it's all politics are local. I don't think what Nick wants and what Cody wants are the same thing. What Nick wants is to go back to 10 years ago, which is great for Alabama, is not great for Indiana or for even Tennessee. But what Nick Saban keeps saying is he wants to bring back competitive equity. What he's ignoring is that there's more competitive equity now than there was 10 years ago. Like the rules that were around 10 years ago basically allowed the best players to cluster at the same 3 or 4 schools. The open market now makes them move around more and makes them spread out more.
I guess the question is there such thing as competitive equity in a place in college football where players are restricted from moving because it's more rational?
The movement is sort of a requirement for competitive equity. And that's the part I don't think they understand yet. Now, should it be unfettered and should they be able to transfer like 8 times in an offseason? No. Like, I think everyone can agree that that's silly too. There's a happy medium. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes. Like, Cody Campbell's an interesting one. So yes, he is actually funding Texas Tech buying all these transfers. But he says he doesn't want it to be like that, which I don't understand, because that's really the only way Texas Tech can get into that club.
Well, it's also more expensive for him. That's what I was saying earlier, Andy, when you're like, I think that like what Cody Campbell is doing right now is what Nick Saban does not want, right? Like that's.
But it's what Cody Campbell doesn't want either.
Yeah, well,
if we are to believe what he says over what he does,
how expensive, this must be or would continue to be for him if this is just the way the world worked. But I also can't imagine that if his best interests are Texas Tech, that he would want to do anything differently. That's the thing I can't wrap my head around.
That's what I can't wrap my brain around that either. But if you read what he's written about it, I think I understand a little better. What he wants is a massive reorganization of college sports. He would like college sports to be included in the Sports Broadcasting Act of 1961, which is what allows NFL teams, Major League Baseball teams, NBA teams to pool their television rights and sell them as one and be a single seller, which Cody's absolutely right. If college football, like major college football, all got together and sold their rights as one, they would make a lot more money than they make now. Like the total of the money coming in from TV contracts would be significantly more because they could command a higher price by being the only seller. Now,
then if you
Big
were to
Ten's a seller, the SEC's a seller, The Big 12 is a seller. The ACC is a seller.
And what you would be doing in that perfect warm and cozy world is eventually going to trickle into the most valuable properties getting less.
That's right. And that's where this will be interesting to see what happens, because what Cody wants, now he claims he wants it to be for everybody, not just the Power Four. But I'm sure he would like Texas Tech to be involved in any sort of super league that's coming. Because here's the thing. If you put college sports under the umbrella of the TV Broadcasting Act of 1961, then that's a license to make a super league. It gives you cover. Basically, the super league can form, and then the schools that are left out can't sue because the super league will have an antitrust exemption. That's essentially what would happen. And so it is assuming that Texas Tech gets in that super league. But what if they don't?
Yeah. Or if, like, in the perfect rosy world, like, everybody is in that agreement together, and then there's a way that they could tier the income based on conference and school, maybe that could work. I don't know if that's a fantasy thought or not.
Well,
but
and what Cody says is he'd like to reorganize the conferences by geography. Another thing, I'm not sure that's going to happen. Here's the part that misunderstands. The Big Ten and the SEC didn't spend 100 years building this advantage to just give it back.
Right.
And what he's saying is, look, the Cowboys and the Packers are in very different markets. The Cowboys are still going to make more money because they're going to have a bigger stadium. They're going to sell more tickets. They're going to sell them for more money. But they're going to share their TV money equally. And that is going to help the entire NFL. And he's right about that. Like, if you look at the NFL's economic model, that is definitely working. And he'd like to see that in college football. And I got to be honest with you.
But there was also no huge split between the Cowboys viewing, right? Like, I'm sure there are certain NFL teams.
Because of the way they do it. If they did it differently, like if the NFC East had been its own conference for all these years instead of part of the NFL,
the NFL is,
it might be different.
In terms of, like, must-watch properties is so much more fluid than it is in college. Like 7-10 years ago, the Chiefs weren't the number one game in town, and now people have to watch the Chiefs because like it changes. It doesn't change in college because the universities are different size, the alumni bases are different, the fans, the geographical stuff. Like, it's like Ohio State is the number one viewing property every year because Ohio State is a massive school that is always good and has built a following that, traverses things. Like, there's nothing you could do from a television revenue split to get Rutgers to be as valuable of a television property. It cannot happen. But if Shedeur Sanders turns into the next Tom Brady, the Browns will be must-watch television when they're probably the asswipe of the league right now. Like, that is so much more cyclical in the league. It doesn't work that way in college.
Right, because they have different rules for competitive equity. And like the Nick Saban desired rules for competitive equity don't actually create competitive equity. A draft creates competitive equity.
Yeah.
And they're not going to be able to do that. A hard salary cap that actually is adhered to helps create competitive equity.
If they could do
I don't
that,
think they're going to be able to do that either.
Because what would happen if they created a hard cap based on how much money you could actually pay out everybody on your roster? People would have to go to atypical programs to get max contracts because they wouldn't be able to offer them
theoretically
out.
And theoretically that would work if you had rules that you could enforce to keep the Ohio States and the Georgias and the Alabamas.
Yeah, could you imagine
just hoovering them all
Ohio
up?
State, Bama, Georgia, Clemson, and all the big time schools had they were, got a bunch of early commitments and committed to pay money, and they were up against the cap. And then you had here are the lists on On3 that were the 7 teams that are nowhere near their cap, and here are the 8 5-stars that haven't found a home yet. It's like all of a sudden Purdue becomes the most coveted spot in America because they have the most to pay. Like, that would be crazy.
Yeah, Purdue's got a lot of cap room this year.
Yeah, Purdue has
that would,
Ohio State,
and that actually would work. That actually would work if you could put, which we've said, if you do a CBA, you could do that. What these guys want is not a CBA. They want them to be declared never employees, that they're just students, ignoring the fact that colleges pay their students all the time. But it's going to be interesting. I don't know that it's going to lead to anything. I'm not even, at this point, I'm not even going to try to log a prediction here because I don't know where they're going to go with this.
The thing that is interesting too, and I think you have to, there are things that might be solutions that these committee members come up with that have been struck down in court already.
But here's the thing. They're trying to get an antitrust exemption that would keep it from being struck down in court ever again. It's not a case of them trying to follow the law. It's them just trying to get either executive or legislative cover to break the law. And it's not, again, if you get legislative cover, if you get an exemption, you're not breaking the law.
Yeah. That'd be a pretty good grip.
Isn't it? So we'll see what they do. But look, Cody Campbell's utopian world that he's outlined actually looks pretty cool. I just don't know that you could get to it, because it would be a super league that probably would be realistically the 4 power conferences that exist now. So those 65 or so schools, I could live with that. I think that would be fun. And his argument is, if you do it as a single seller, the SEC and the Big Ten schools make more than they make now, or make as much as they make now from television. And then everybody else rises because they would then be sharing equally in television money. That's the utopian view of it. My suspicion is the Big Ten and the SEC people who have spent these last few decades trying to widen that gap would not just give it away, because it's not just about the money. It's also about the power.
Yeah. It's super fascinating, but also too, you have people who are on this presidential commission who have arrived at their opinions based on what is best for the institutions that they're from or coached at. Right.
Would you mean Nick Saban?
I'm just saying, what you think that Nick Saban's opinion is formed based on the greater good of what's good for Vanderbilt, or do you think
no, because his idea of competitive equity is the thing that would make Alabama, Ohio State, and Georgia the only teams that could win the national title again.
What you want to do, Tin Hat Thursday? He's trying to get a presidential commission going here to get things back so he can return to coaching and dominate again.
Yeah, Vance in the chat says, is Saban doing this to prevent a college football version of Manchester City or Paris Saint-Germain? I.e., the Saudi royal family becomes a big Vandy guy and puts $5 billion into NIL. Everybody keeps saying they're afraid.
Dave Ubben.
What is Oregon doing now? And they didn't win the national championship.
I think that there is this outside alien unsolved mysteries episode out there where if somebody worth $5 billion decided we're going to win, that hasn't happened.
Vance is right. That did happen in soccer. But and what Vance is saying is Manchester City. So Manchester City was Auburn and Manchester United was Alabama. And suddenly a bunch of money flowed in from the Middle East that allowed Auburn to buy better players than Alabama had. That's I think what Vance is getting at here.
Tim Cook went to Auburn, right? Am I remembering that correctly?
He did. You're right. The CEO of Apple went to Auburn.
Okay. Tim Cook annual income real quick here. Let's see here. He makes $74 million a year. Which includes
and imagine his stock options. Imagine what they're worth.
I think that compensation includes $58 million in stock, but also stock awards pay the dividends over time and whatever. But he's probably worth almost $1 billion at this point. If he decided Auburn is going to win the national title, and I don't care how recklessly I have to spend money, I'm going to do it. I want to see this before
Phil Knight is worth more than him. He's already decided that, and Oregon has yet to win a national title.
But Phil Knight hasn't gone insane, has he? Write blank checks to everybody. I'm saying if somebody went absolutely
we could argue that it's what Cody Campbell's doing this offseason.
Yeah. I wrote checks so big that players would have nothing to think about. That's what I'm saying. Like, you go through a recruiting process and you sign 25 of the top 50 players in the country because you wrote checks so big it would be insane to say no. Like, just like I'm not saying people there,
but nobody's done that. I know everybody thinks that's going to happen.
Like, it could happen one day. In this current system, it could happen theoretically.
I guess, but we'll see if they can create a system where that won't happen. I have my doubts, but
that would be kind of a fun
thing to watch, if the ideal world version of Cody Campbell's the one if you go read what he's written, like 4 essays in the Federalist about this. There's one, the one that breaks down the TV Act. If you read that, if it could work, because he's not anti-paying players. Clearly, he's writing big checks to them right now. So the players would be getting paid. There would be some freedom of movement, but it would be a more organized system. It would keep some of these schools from getting cut out of the big time, which you and I have both said we like the variety of college football. We don't want it to be a 30-team Super League or a 40-team Super League. We would like it to be larger than that. Like, that sounds cool.
Yeah, I mean,
if you could make it happen, it would be cool. I just don't know if
I gotta ask
if
you
it's
this,
gonna be possible.
because you know I'm a big hypotheticals guy. If I could say, because we both think that the Super League is inevitable. We don't talk about it a lot because we don't want to be sad, but we think it's inevitable.
Right.
Correct? If you could make a deal or no deal scenario right now that locks in a Super League that includes every power conference team that would you take the deal right now?
Sign me up immediately. I'll take it right now.
And now,
because I don't want to see like half three quarters of the Big 12 fall to the wayside and 3/4 of the ACC fall to the wayside. I don't want to see that. Like,
but you would be loading up boats on the Titanic for the rich people and sailing away while the poor people stayed on the boat. Like, that's what that would be doing still. Right.
I guess, but like, are the group of 5 really the same thing anyway?
That's what the rich people on the boat said.
Yeah.
I mean, that's more sad because there are people, but like, it's
yeah, right.
But I'm just saying,
you have to draw, like, you have to put a line somewhere. There's a line there now at 135. Aren't the FCS people too?
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Do you think that there's a world where the Super League with the current power team, I would like it if they could get Oregon State and Washington State in the mix somehow too. I feel bad for them. But if there's a line or a world out there that exists where if the Power 4 as it's currently constructed as the Super League leaves the group of 5 behind, that the group of five could find a system that would actually make it more enriching.
Yeah, it's called the FCS. They'd waste a lot less money. And they still play football that people care about.
And then they could actually play in a system in a league where winning a championship is actually possible.
Yes.
That's the one thing that I think is always interesting about it. And it's like, it sounds condescending and people get mad at me, and it's always happened since the beginning of my career. But like, listen, I'm even going to use a power school. Okay. I went to Arizona, and I used to say this when I was in college and it used to piss people off. But when people would be really hyped up in Arizona football, they're hyped up when they're an 8-win team, like when they're winning games.
Mm-hmm.
But not great, just good. Like, the expectations in different places are different. And it always confused me because like, this is my first beat. Like, I was the Arizona beat writer for the student newspaper. And like, I remember like writing articles, and I wasn't as seasoned or knew what I know about the sport now, but I remember thinking in those press boxes, it's like, you just beat Oregon State to go 5-4. Why are people excited? This is a joke. Like, I would be thinking that in my head. And like, I've never understood how you can get enjoyment out of sports if your team isn't winning championships. Like, that, if the pursuit of championships doesn't exist. Like, if you're an Arizona fan who's bought, and I'm talking to you, who's bought into Arizona football, you're on the message board, you're listening to our show, you're a big Wildcat. What is the source of enjoyment for you to see how good it can get? Like, is that what, like, I've never understood, like, if winning a title is a 0% proposition, then how can you invest so much of your own personal thought into that? Like, that's always been a thing to me. So giving the group of 5 its own system where a MAC team that is assembled great, like at the Toledos of the world, could actually go to a playoff of their own and win a championship, doesn't that give them the pursuit of something that doesn't exist right now? Or is playing on the bigger stage and trying to knock off the big dog in a singular game more exciting to them? Like, I don't know the answer to that. I didn't go to a group of 5 schools, so I don't know. But I was always, I even had that question when I was at a smaller power school.
Well, I kind of wondered that about like Appalachian State. Like, they're winning national titles in the FCS. And you go to the Sun Belt where you can win a Sun Belt title, but you're never going to compete for a national title.
But is winning a Sun Belt title and making the playoff and playing close against Texas in the first round more gratifying than winning a championship at the lower level?
I would that we probably should ask that. Like, if there are any Appalachian State fans in the chat, I'd love to know, what was more gratifying to you? Was it winning multiple FCS national titles, or was it beating Michigan?
Because maybe it's beating Michigan, because beating Michigan was something that the whole world saw. Winning FCS championships is something that most people don't know.
Exactly. Hey, Ari, before we go on, I want to tell everybody who's watching on Twitter right now, time to move to YouTube. The link for the YouTube stream is right below the one you're watching on Twitter. Come over here, subscribe to the On3 Sports YouTube channel, and hop in this chat, because we got the smartest, best looking people in the world in chat. They're awesome. And we want you to join them, because the discussion here is always great. We're going to be answering Dear Andy and Dear Ari questions, which came from the people in the chat. Again, awesome. So come on, join us. Join the hive right now. We'll see you over on YouTube. Yes, Ari, go ahead. Sorry.
Let's ask Arizona State fans.
Yes.
Right?
Good question.
Arizona State fan, big school. But the thing with Arizona State is I actually think that, like, if they struck it right, they could conceivably win a title in the next 15 years. Like, I don't know where it's going. Maybe this new system has given newfound hope to programs that were once hopeless. But, and like, maybe my Arizona thoughts from when I was a student reporter don't exist anymore, because we live in a world now that's different, and the sport is flattening and players are going to new places, and a 5-star kid like Bijan Robinson who grows up in Tucson might have a higher likelihood of going to Arizona than he would have in the past. I don't know. But if you knew last year during your run that you weren't going to win the national title, was it gratifying? Or is saying that you weren't going to win a national championship last year just inherently wrong, because they did almost beat Texas? So, like, I don't know.
Right. Had they beaten Texas, what would have happened next? It's a great question. Jackson White in the chat with a really good comment. It is similar to the Premier League and lower levels of English football. People will continue to find things to root for with passion at every level. That's exactly right. Mm-hmm. And so it annoys me a lot, the arguments about a lot of this stuff. Well, if we can't, if we're not in the Super League, then why should we even do it? Because you like it and a group of people cares about it. Like, there are a lot of things people care about that are not cared about by millions of people. It only matters if you care about it. And so, like, when people say, oh, they're going to have to cut all these sports, they're going to have to do this. No, they won't. They won't cut the things they care about. If enough people care, nothing's getting cut. Like, everybody acts like this is so hard to do, like Division II and Division III sports in college don't exist. They exist. They don't make big money. They don't make any money. Yet people keep doing it because they like it. Because the players get satisfaction out of it. The coaches get satisfaction out of it. The fans get satisfaction out of it. It still exists. So that's the part I think that this is the most disingenuous part of all of these arguments.
We spend a lot of time talking about teams that are in the championship mix, and I think that the pool of teams that are in the championship mix, even though it used to be like, 5 years ago, when we would talk about going into a year, there were maybe 5 teams that could win a title in a year based on the way they recruited. What do you think the actual pool of teams was that had a national championship ceiling in that era? Would you say 20?
No. You're talking about the super team era, the Alabama, Ohio State.
Or how many teams,
I think there might have been 8.
Okay. So you're saying, I think there were more than 8. I think there were 5 every year that we thought were going to win the title. That would be Bama, Ohio State, Clemson, Georgia, and who am I forgetting? There's one LSU sometime.
LSU some years.
So that's 5. But then like the Florida State, Miami, Michigan,
Penn State.
Penn State. Like it'd probably be 20 if you did that. But it didn't mean that they were in that bucket for the individual years, but their fan bases still were competing and expecting to be competitive on that national championship plane. Now, do you think that has expanded to the entire, every single year you might only have 20 teams that could conceivably do it in an individual year, but how many people are in the pool could conceivably be good enough one day to compete on that plane? Everybody? Do you think everybody in the Power 5 is on that level now? Because I think that you could make the case that maybe, yeah. Like, is Texas Tech on that level now? Texas Tech wouldn't have even
to win a national championship? No.
I'm not saying in this individual year, but I'm saying if you're a Texas Tech fan, it is not absolutely insane to wake up in the morning and go, with Cody Campbell on our side, in our system.
As long as he doesn't cap himself, which he seems to be trying to do.
Theory, I think that like everybody could go watch what ASU did last year and be like, hey, that's something that we can duplicate if we hit on the right 2 or 3. Like, it's not in, like, if you would have said Texas Tech's going to win a national championship in 2019, you would have been put into a loony bin. Right. If you want to say it right now, you could come up with a scenario that is quasi-realistic where they could actually do that.
I can put them in the playoff pretty easily. I can say they're going to win the Big 12 and go in the playoff easily.
3 or 4 players away from winning a national title now, and that was never the case. So what I'm saying is there's probably more fire to root for Kansas State in Houston, in Baylor, and BYU, and Tech, and all the other teams that were existing on this plane but weren't really a part of the picture. Because we pick on the group of 5 and the FCS and say, hey, well, they're people too. Well, you got to also acknowledge the fact that even in the Power Conference, there's probably 70% of the teams that aren't even thinking about national title on a given year. So if that number is expanding, then that makes it fun. But I just don't know if it's harder to answer the questions that I'm posing right now, because I think an Arizona fan's temperament is much different now than it was in 2019.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing everybody's going to have to come to grips with, is what they expect from their team, because all those expectations are going to have to be adjusted here in whatever comes next. I don't know. Like I said, you and I have pretty much resigned ourselves that there's going to be a Super League. I'm afraid it's going to be less teams than it should be. And the worry I have is like Cody Campbell going into this thinking that he's going to get Texas Tech into the Super League. But the thing is, if you give college football the cover of an antitrust exemption to sell its TV rights as one, which I don't even know if it needs, because the conferences already do that. Like, you have groups of schools selling their rights as one. Like, so, but if you give them cover and give them an antitrust exemption, and the SEC and the Big Ten say, sweet, we're going to get together, we're going to add Clemson and Florida State and North Carolina and a couple schools from the Big 12. And the rest of you, go. We got an antitrust exemption now. Thanks, suckers. Because I think that's what they're going to say.
Yeah. Well, you're more seasoned with the politics world, so I'll let you. I
don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. Nobody knows in this realm of politics. Nobody knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't even understand how executive order works. So, like, we did the civics test.
The president says do this,
and everybody does it.
Now, it's supposed to shape future legislation and be kind of an emergency situation, but that sort of depends on how the legislative branch acts and how the judicial branch acts. So, like, just go back to your Schoolhouse Rock, everybody. So, it'll be very interesting. Vance in the chat again. Why do I feel like the people really driving this push to regulate NIL are private equity groups who learn their lesson from soccer regarding controlling players' costs? Vance, you're incredibly cynical and probably correct.
Vance is smart.
Yes. Vance is very smart,
Not here
very
spitting
cynical,
Yeah.
and I am not. I wouldn't be surprised if that's what it is. To be perfectly honest, like it's the real push behind it is the money that wants to get in on this thing and just wants to control its costs. The schools want to control their costs too, by the way. That's pretty much the entirety of all this. So we'll see what happens, but it is going to be utterly fascinating. The president has jumped in. Nick Saban, who we've often talked about as a potential commissioner of college football, well, now he's got a little juice there. So we'll see. More government intervention in college sports. We got a House settlement update. So when last we left the House versus the NCAA case, federal judge Claudia Wilken had said, hey, these roster caps, like, you don't have to kick your walk-ons off the team. Like, let's grandfather them in. And when they're done, then we'll have the roster cap numbers that we agreed on. And the plaintiffs are like, yep, sure, sounds good. The schools are like, no, we'd like to continue to be jerks about this. So they'd have amended it. Now they're saying schools can grandfather players in if they want to. The judge was fairly clear. It needs to be schools must grandfather players in. Don't screw this up, schools. Don't screw this up, because if Congress doesn't save you, if this presidential commission goes nowhere and you wind up going into court against the House plaintiffs, you're going to get your asses handed to you. So get this thing done. But the objectors have until Tuesday to file their next objection. Then the schools can do it right after that. Then Wilkins probably going to rule. I'd say we probably have an answer on this thing in about a week. So we'll see what happens. But my guess is if it comes to the settlement's going to blow up, if they don't grandfather in the walk-ons, they're going to grandfather in the walk-ons, because I can't believe that they would be that stupid. But again, they always surprise us.
Yeah. God, do you imagine thinking in the past?
Because you wouldn't keep 12 walk-ons on your football team.
So
you blow up the whole thing.
It's so stupid. I can't even contextualize it in my own brain.
It's amazing.
It literally
truly amazing.
Trying to sell my house and needing to sell my house to remain afloat financially, and the person who's buying it says, "I'll give you
$1,000 apart, and you won't budge."
No, that's even worse than that. I think I will give you full asking, and we'll pay cash, no finances, no contingencies, but I want you to pull the oranges off the tree in the backyard. And I said no.
It's exactly what it is.
You know what that is?
Yeah. You got to keep these 12 walk-ons for 2 more years.
Oh wow, my back is against the wall.
Yeah,
that's the other part. You're not even being difficult. You need to save yourself.
Right. It's like we brought back debtor's prison, and you're going to go to debtor's prison if you don't sell the house.
Was that a thing?
Oh my God.
Was that a thing?
That was a thing. That was a thing back in the day. Yeah.
You went to prison if you didn't pay your debts?
Yes.
Dude, that would be a really, really tough proposition for us as a country if that happened again. There's a lot of people out there that aren't paying their debts.
Yeah, I don't think I would have taken out as many credit cards.
Think about would Chanel as a company be completely defunct if you went to prison for not paying your Nordstrom bill?
Probably, yeah.
You think about the luxury brands. I was in the mall the other day and I saw the baby Gucci store and
how about student loans? Do you think anybody'd go to college if they had to pay student loans back and couldn't?
What would be more expensive, forgiveness of student loans or funding the prisons to put people in when they're in debt and not paying?
This is the kind of politics we're not getting into. We got forced into the other politics.
The thing that I'm curious about, because I want to bring you into what's happening in my life right now. Okay. We've had a leak in my house, and I thought it was a window wasn't sealed properly. You could caulk it for $100. And dry out the wall and then repatch the wall up, and it would be just a $1,000 or $2,000 to fix. Annoying, but not big. So anyway, we've been trying to figure out the source of this leak, Andy, and you know this for I've been complaining to you about it since the Super Bowl. And we finally opened up a wall upstairs where the leak was coming from, and the entire wall is rotted out. So now, like, we're talking like a major stucco failure leak scenario here, which could be a massive, intrusive, expensive repair. Okay.
This is an insurance claim, is what you're talking about. That bad,
right? But the house was built in 2021. And by the way, guys, we're all friends here. We're family. I'm telling you what's happening in my actual life that makes me want to vomit in the toilet. So there's a warranty on structural. And I'm trying to go through the warranty right now. But it's possible that the person who built the home doesn't actually have a warranty and might be financially responsible for it for himself, which he might not have the money for, which means he should go to prison in your prison system. I was not here in the 1700s. I did not create the debtor's prison system.
And
luckily, we have homeowners insurance, so we're not going to have to pay for it, but it would be much better if we didn't have to pay the deductible, which is probably
if that person would have to go to jail instead.
Yeah, either fix my wall or go to prison, then I would be like, go to prison. Because like what's actually going to happen is he's not going to do anything. And I'm finding that home warranties are a scam. And if you, so we're just gonna have to end up paying the deductible, and a deductible on a homeowner's policy is like 10 grand, right?
It's a lot. Usually. Yeah. Debtors' prisons abolished in America in 1833, in case you were wondering.
1833. What are we coming up on the 200-year anniversary? Yeah, let's fire that back up.
Jeff says both of us don't know squat about college football. No, we don't know squat about debtors' prisons. We're pretty good about college football. Which brings us to Dear Andy and Dear Ari. Your questions answered.
Andy, one last thing. Sorry, I have to.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Debtor's prison gets brought back, but then unreasonable interest rates on loans go away. Deal or no deal?
That's actually not a bad idea.
Like,
because I think the unreasonable interest rates would go away.
Because people wouldn't take them. Well, no, people are stupid. They would still.
People would be less incentivized to take out credit to use credit anyway.
So like credit card debt actually is, if you don't make the minimum payment, you are, or whatever your balance you're carrying, you pay 2.5% instead of 17%, which then allows you to get out of debt easier. They make their nut. But then if you are also so irresponsible with the money that you can't pay back your balances with the interest rates that are manageable, then you go to prison. Wasserman 2028.
Your administration is going to be wild. Like maybe Nick Saban and Cody Campbell should just wait.
And here's the last part. If you're
wait until you're in charge.
If you're $1 million or more in debt, Alcatraz. See, it's all coming back.
It's just full circle. Love it. Right. Love it. With Sean Connery.
Yeah.
You know what the winners do? That's a terrible Sean Connery. I don't even know what accent that was.
Andy, I think that, like, I don't know. Do you know how much credit you actually have? Like in terms of like if you maxed out all your cards right now?
No. I'm not sure what the limits are on them.
Between me and my wife, like we have a lot of credit that's unused. Like I think we could conceivably take out hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. What's to stop us from maxing out everything, selling all that stuff, not paying it, and then moving to Mexico?
Or not wanting to live in Mexico.
But what's the recourse of maxing out cards?
Don't we have extradition with Mexico?
No, but no. Hear me out. This doesn't involve leaving the country. What if I maxed out all my cards and overextended myself to the point of obscene nature, sold everything for 70 cents on the dollar, cashed out $300K, had those assets in cash, and then didn't pay anybody back? What's the recourse there from the credit?
They would just take it to civil court. They take it to civil court.
Okay, and then on paper I've got nothing, but I sold everything.
Right, and you don't. At that point, you don't have a job where the wages can be garnished.
No wages to be garnished, and all the assets that I bought on my credit card without paying it back were just in a duffel bag somewhere.
Yeah, you just have to continue operating all cash. You're moving off the grid in that decision.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think here. Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay. So you need an all cash business. You basically become a money launderer. If
one last one
for being real here.
One last one before
Okay.
we get to questions. We're going to be in here all day. What's to stop me from using my Amex to buy $100,000 worth of gold and then selling the gold in cash and then paying off my Amex to accumulate points?
Nothing.
There's got to be like a provision on your Amex card that says like if you buy X, Y, or Z with like what's because you can deposit into gambling.
Well, I don't think they can stop you from buying a certain thing.
I know, but I don't know that they would be. But they could stop you from awarding points if you bought it from a treasurer. But like if you went to a pawn shop, I don't know how they would even track what you bought. Well, hey, stay tuned for more economic loophole. This is what I think about before bed. Some people I
can't wait to see Ari just walk into a pawn shop with an Amex.
Do you know if you spend
I need a gold bar, please?
If you spent $1 million a year on your Amex, you would probably have enough points to sustain your life. And if you did that by buying and selling something that doesn't fluctuate in value all that much, and you were able to cash out that money that you spent immediately and then pay off your card with it, you could accumulate a lot of points and do a lot without your points.
You couldn't sustain your life. Like your cash back, like 2% cash back on $1 million in purchases is $20,000.
Yeah. You could.
I mean, maybe if you're the type of person who spends $1 million on an Amex, you ain't living on $20,000.
No, but if anybody can spend $1 million.
Let's say you better not become a criminal. You would be screwed. Exactly.
Yeah, maybe we're not all masterminds.
Criminal mastermind Ari Wasserman.
The reason why my buddy was like depositing into. He went to New York for a wedding this week, and he deposited into one of the gambling things out there, and he was allowed to pay with his Amex. So it's an Amex charge. And then the money goes into the account. You can cash out that money without playing it and then pay off your card. So if you get points for depositing into the account for the cash, then you can just do that constantly and get a bunch of points.
I think probably there's a limit on how many times you can do it. I'll have to read.
There's probably
my Amex terms of service.
Okay, sorry for breaking you off. Alcatraz.
Here's the thing. Whatever you're thinking of, somebody's already thought about it. There was an incident. And they came up with something.
Yeah, if you have any fully legal ways to accumulate points on your Amex, let me know.
All right. Now we get to Dear Ari and Dear Andy. This question comes from Devin. Gentlemen, I need some help from a lot of you. As the scary realization of a Super League is looming, I really need to know how this situation will affect smaller schools. As you boys know, I'm an Arizona State fan. But it seems like schools that are smaller than ASU will get left out of the Super League. Is that correct? What will that mean if they're left to the predations of the NCAA? Do they lose access to money that these schools will get if they're left out of the Super League, or just get a smaller TV deal if they can cobble together a league and get one? I understand that it seems like this is going to be an inevitability, but I don't understand what happens to the teams that are left out. It's my hope that we won't see schools drop their programs. Devin, I think we've already answered some of this.
Yeah.
They won't drop programs if they care. Like, the FCS exists. And FCS football teams are not dropping their programs en masse. Division II exists. Division III exists. There's a place. Now, Devin is assuming Arizona State's in the Super League. That's a big assumption. I would think it would be. I don't think you want to leave a metro area as large as Phoenix out.
I didn't want to say it, but I don't know that you have like sleep like a baby nights if you're scared of this, if you're an ASU fan.
Correct. It really would depend on the size of the league, of whether you should feel safe or not.
But I actually also feel like if you made a Super League that was smaller, the not including of ASU and programs of that size would help sustain whatever other league existed as a result of it. If you
they become the big dogs in the other league. But what he's not even talking about. He's talking about not the Big 12. He's talking about. I would assume he's talking about Group of 5 schools.
Yeah,
and they would keep playing football if they care about football. They just wouldn't waste a bunch of money trying to compete with Alabama. Like, everybody wants to make it more complicated than it is. Appalachian State and Georgia Southern are always going to play football. They like football. They like having a football team. So they're going to have a football team. Whatever happens above them financially is not going to change the fact that they're going to have a football team. So
how much people care,
I don't know.
how much the Republic cares, and all those things will change maybe, but that doesn't change the existence of the team.
Right. The perception of it, where you can see it, and yes, everybody's got a way to see their games. Some people are streaming on the internet. Some people are on CBS Sports Network. Some people are on Fox. Some people are on ESPN. Like the Pac-12 is creating a new TV deal right now. The Pac-12 that is Washington State and Oregon State and the schools that they've added. So everybody has, and that's the thing that I think people have the hardest time wrapping their brains around, is that not everybody has to be at the highest level and not everybody gets to be at the highest level. Like Ari, we do a sports show on YouTube. I want to make the same amount of money as Pat McAfee. Guess what? We don't. Like, that's life.
So I'm Arizona, is what you're saying.
And I'm Arizona State.
Arizona State was awesome last year.
Arizona State was awesome last year.
Yeah,
Arizona's been awesome.
Away. I mean, maybe one day we'll get a crash the run in the playoff and get to that point, but that's why we show up every day. Maybe that's the answer to the question I've been looking.
So next question from Jerry. I'm a regular listener and enjoy practically all your discussions with Ari. I have to say I was disappointed in your lazy take on USC's 2024 season. You mentioned the Trojans' many close losses, but like all college football observers, you failed to note they had an equal number of close wins. Including their bowl game, USC went 7-6 with 5 one-score losses and 5 one-score wins. Why look at only one side of the ledger? Is there some sports writer rule that says look only at the close losses? This is a very fair question from Jerry.
Also, I was not at all. Jerry, I love you, buddy. I was not positive at all about their season last year.
Not your fault. No, this is me.
This is on you.
This is me saying if you reverse some of the close losses, we're not looking at such a bad situation for USC.
Yeah.
And that we shouldn't be so down on them going into this season, because I feel like you and a lot of other people are very down on USC going into the season. But Jerry's not wrong. Jerry's not wrong. If you had an equal number of close wins, those results could easily be flipped too, and you're in the same situation you were in last year. You have essentially the same year over again. So
I think that when you have close wins and close losses, and that's your entire schedule, then you ended up what you probably should have been. So I agree with that. Like the notion of they could have been 10.
This is a very fair criticism of my argument.
Well, I think that the reason why you do this is if you win a game, even if it's by one, you won, and you get to use that win as you won. You can't relitigate losses. So
here's where I would have a better leg to stand on. So the Penn State game is one of these games. That game actually went to overtime. Penn State was obviously very good, made the Final Four. USC was that close to Penn State. If all of their losses were to teams like Penn State and they were close like that, then it would help my argument. But where Jerry's correct, and all of the losses weren't to teams like Penn State. There was one in Maryland. There was one in Minnesota. The version of Michigan that they played when they played them, let's be honest, they shouldn't have lost to. So Jerry's right. Jerry's right on this. I probably did take a lazy look at that.
But I don't even know if that's you. I think that's everybody. I think that when you get a win, you don't think about, well, what if they would have lost that one? You think about the losses. That's just natural human nature.
That's human nature. But he's right. From a mathematical standpoint, from a probability standpoint, we need to take a look at both.
Yeah, and I also think too that USC being what they were last year was exactly what they should have been, because they got the benefit of winning close games and they had the unfortunate reality of losing a bunch of close games. But if you're in a bunch of close games, any team who plays one possession games every week is probably going to find themselves on the wrong end of the spectrum half the time. That's just math.
Yeah.
So, that
unless you're Nebraska all those years and you lost all of them.
But that was a mathematical anomaly that people at casinos are still studying.
So I apologize, Trojan fans. I was trying to blow some sunshine and Jerry got me.
Which is crazy because you picked a hell of a time to use that question, because USC fans are not happy with us right now.
Oh, they're so mad at us.
They're already mad. So
but they don't even understand why they should be mad. They're mad because we left them off the best jobs list. And then they start giving reasons for why they should be on the best jobs list. And I'm like, those aren't reasons. Ari, in the past 60 years, USC has had 2 coaches that have led them to what they expect to be. John Robinson and Pete Carroll. 2 Hall of Fame level coaches. What does that sound like to you?
In fairness, though, when Lincoln Riley took the job, I
Mm-hmm.
would have put him in the top 10 like that summer.
Okay. Well,
I think
no,
that-
we probably would have incorrectly put it in on the list because Lincoln Riley thought it was a better job than Oklahoma.
Right.
Really,
and-
probably he was running away from the SEC. And by the way, USC being in the Big Ten makes it a different job too.
Let's unpack that stuff too, though. Like, is USC a harder job than Lincoln Riley thought it was, or is Lincoln Riley doing a bad job?
Well, USC priority is one of the people who got mad at us. Just stop speaking on us in general. You guys don't care about the West or trying to stay up to date. Up to date? Like, you guys went 7-5 last year. That's up to date. Recruiting class is good this year. Recruiting class was good this time last year.
USC priority. Please, you can't look me in the eye and say I don't care about the West Coast. I love the West Coast. It's my favorite place in the world, and my entire life goal is to live there. And USC was like the epitome of cool when I was growing up. And I tried to leave the Ohio State beat multiple times to cover USC in my professional career because of my desire to want to be around it and be there. So that's just because you like them and we're saying things that you don't like about the thing that you like doesn't mean we don't.
What amazes me is the people getting mad at us saying their job is hard. The job's hard. If the job was easy, Lincoln Riley would have already gone to the playoff a bunch of times and Ari wouldn't have had to pay me $1,000.
I had to pay $1,000 because I agreed with USC priority when Lincoln Riley was hired, and I was wrong.
Yeah,
I have less money.
The job's hard.
I could be putting that into my rotting wall right now.
USC and Florida are the same job. They've been, in the modern era of football, fairly mediocre when they haven't had a Hall of Fame level coach.
Also, too, we didn't say this, but it has to be said. The USC job has become increasingly harder because of the emergence of Oregon.
And because they're in the Big Ten now.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, like, they used to be the king and badasses of the West Coast. And one of the 2 coaches that you mentioned got them to where they wanted to go, did it before Oregon was even a thought. Oregon wasn't even a thing back then. So you had Pete Carroll, who you might, and was Oregon, where was Oregon?
Oregon was good when Pete Carroll was there.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
But they weren't, that was like the Mike Bellotti years where they were good, but they weren't like.
They were getting there, but they weren't there yet. Yeah.
And like, in Oregon recruits the hell out of California. So not only do they have a harder time recruiting their own state, there's a question of whether or not the talent in that state is even as good as the other states in the country. Let's talk about that for a second. California has a bunch of really, really highly rated players all the time in the top 100, and it doesn't hit at the same rate as Southern players do. So there's a question of whether or not the California players that they use to subsidize their entire roster are good enough. How many 5-star players in USC signed during the Clay Helton era that turned out to be dog shit? Like, it happened all the time. And I don't know if that was a developmental issue but like the California, like they're the best players in the country thing, I think is not true right now. There's a lot underneath the hood about USC that you have to acknowledge is difficult. And because you're a fan of them, if you don't want to do that, that's fine. But it's right in front of your face. Oregon, California talent, harder schedule, different time zone, everything is less advantageous than the 10 schools that we had on the list. It's not that difficult. It's not that difficult to put together.
Yeah. And like, I don't understand, like, the getting mad about the job thing. Like,
all California players.
We said your job's not easy. We weren't insulting you. Like, your job has challenges.
Yeah.
Like, it's not an insult. And if you don't think your job has challenges, then you actually really need to take a hard look at what's going on at your school now. Like, this is what I want to ask all the USC fans who are mad at us. If you think it's a top 10 job, then give me your honest appraisal of Lincoln Riley's performance in it. Because you can't say it's a top 10 job without saying he's failed. If you think he's failed, then I'm fine with you saying it's a top 10 job. If you think he hasn't failed, then it's not a top 10 job.
It might not even be a top 20
because at a
job.
top 10 job, what he's done would not be acceptable.
Yeah. I thought
like
that
I got LSU on this list. If Brian Kelly goes 8-4, they're going to view him as a failure this year.
Yeah.
Like they're going to view his entire tenure as a failure if he goes 8-4.
How many of the jobs on our list would have not fired their coach with Lincoln Riley's first 3-year performance?
All of them would have fired the coach. Well, Oklahoma maybe not hasn't fired Venables.
Well, how many years?
But he did have a 10-win season.
LSU is in the same boat though, and they haven't fired Kelly yet.
But LSU similar to USC because they had the best year
time, and they had their best year in the first year, and they've gotten progressively worse. Now LSU has also had a Heisman. Well, USC had. I mean, they're kind of virtually the same. They both had Heisman. They both had really awesome offenses with bad defenses.
And the difference between LSU and USC on this list is LSU's won national titles with 3 different coaches in this century, and USC's won national title with 1 coach.
Did we just like unintentionally stumble on, is Brian Kelly going to be on the hot seat? Is that what just happened here?
Ari, have you been paying attention the entire offseason?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I'm the one who was on the hot seat last
we had a whole show about that like 2 months ago.
But like, should he be on the actual hot seat this year if they don't make the playoff?
I mean, in terms of if they're just going to pay to fire him, they're not going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, and both have also offered obscene guaranteed contracts they can't get out of.
Yeah,
maybe
that's the issue. Like you could want to do it. Yeah, I don't know if you're going to do it, but yeah, for USC, you have to decide: is it a top 10 job or is Lincoln Riley failing? Because they can't both of them have to be true if it's a top 10 job.
Yeah, and also beating another team that's on the list doesn't mean that it's not like that's how ranking. It's not like a ranking of how it works.
Yeah, it's one game.
But also, too, USC priority, we understand based on
your name. You lost to Minnesota and Maryland.
So do we throw Maryland?
Guess what? That erases it.
Like, I don't know. Yeah, but I understand his passion, and I understand that he loves his team. And, like, honestly, lists are very shiny and pretty and fire you up, but when you actually like pull back the curtain and like listen to the context, it's like not an insult. So
my favorite is the people, and this is not the USC fans. This is everybody. Your list is so biased. Your list is completely subjective. No shit, Sherlock. It's a list.
I also want to know.
Of course, it's subjective.
Like, here's the thing. There are certain jobs on my list that I think I would rather have the USC job over because of who I am and where I'd want to live.
Because where you want to live. Yeah.
I mean, you just saw the Lincoln Riley Zillow page, and like you remember, like I pissed off the entire city of Norman, Oklahoma when I said who would want to live in Norman over. Remember that whole fiasco?
Yeah. I remember well.
Yeah. Like, honestly speaking, I'm trying to think of like if let's just say Nick Saban wanted to return next year or something, and there was a hot shot coach who could get any job in the world. Like, all these jobs are the jobs that he would consider. He wouldn't. I mean, USC would probably be in that mix too, and like they're probably in between 10 and 17 somewhere, right? Like on both of our lists.
Yeah, but he'd take all of these over.
Yeah, and I know that I've got a weird one on there. I know A&M's on there, but again, I mean, USC did offer Lincoln Riley $100 million of guaranteed money. And they gave him.
And I would happily take it.
They gave him a housing allowance to buy a house with a view of the Pacific Ocean in a resort style backyard. So if you want to take all the football stuff out of it and just say, what do you get to do if you're USC's head coach? That's probably a pretty good thing. But I read somewhere that he's like sleeps in the USC building half the time because it's too much.
But that's all these guys. Like, none of these guys enjoy where they live. Like, they don't care where they live.
No, I just thought that LA was different traffic wise for him to try to commute home. I don't think that Ohio State coaches sleep at the Woody. They drive home at 9:30 p.m. with no traffic in
there's no traffic between Columbus and Dublin.
If you live in
that time of day,
driving from USC's campus to your beautiful resort style Pacific Ocean front house would be a pain in the ass every day. He's got a great life. Lincoln Riley's doing fine.
That'll do it outdoors. We're talking about football, not going downtown for the movies and clubbing. Exactly. They're football coaches.
I would do
They
neither.
don't care where they live.
I lived in California. Those aren't the things I'm talking about.
That's why you'll never be a top level football coach, Ari. All right. Next question from Eric. Longtime listener, first time writer. Love you guys, but your John Mateer driven OU hype for this upcoming season is driving me up a wall. I know his highlight tape can be impressive at times, but I feel like you've lost sight of the other guys Oklahoma has brought in. When you finally put down the Mateer Kool-Aid, you'll see they replace their 30-plus transfers with a bunch of guys from the group of 5/FCS level. It has been proven since the beginning of the portal that the FCS transfer hit rate at the Power 2 level is about the same as a hit rate on a lotto ticket. As a lifelong Texas fan and recipient of much heartbreak at the hands of the Sooners, I try never to count them out, but I once remember how much money I have lost on lotto tickets in my life, and I feel a lot better about their prospects to be terrible. When you couple their lack of talent and brutal schedule, this is shaping up to be the worst year in the history of their spoiled program, God willing. Love the pod. Keep up the good work, but please put down the Mateer Arbuckle goggles and look deeper into what this team really is outside QB. Eric in Austin. Oh, wait, he's not done. P.S. I proudly listen to the Sooner Scoop postgame show every time they lose. I'm sure Eddie and Carrie and George are very happy about that. Go back and listen to the show after the Navy game when you have time. I can't imagine OU's offseason moves have changed the points they were making at that moment. That's a while back, but
you know what I think is amazing about the show is that I can tell who someone roots for based on the question and how
before they say anything. Yes.
Yeah. I think that too, that Oklahoma last year was like competitive in every game that they played, and like their entire roster was decimated by injuries. So the hope is that that won't happen again too. I think you have to take that into account.
Well, exactly. Also, they punted on the offensive line classes of 21 and 22. They did better in 23, 24. Like, I do think they're going to be better, but there's a reason I didn't have them in my top 25. Like, I think Mateer is going to be good. I kind of need to see their offensive line before I really want to before I really decide what I think they're going to be record wise. Because Eric's not wrong. The schedule is brutal.
Yeah, I also think too that they could be 6-6 and like twice as good as they were last year. Like,
you're right.
Be true. Like, I don't know that they have to go win the national title for them to be a much better team. I think they're going to be a much better team this year. We'll see.
Yeah. Now, well, they do have. It's true. They do have to hit on a lot of the transfers. But also, like, what if David Stone just gets a lot better in year two?
And also, too, is hitting on a group of 5 transfer actually a lotto ticket? I don't know if I agree with that.
I don't think so. Now, maybe FCS, and I think that he's talking about Giovanni Gibson, the receiver from Arkansas Pine Bluff, who was before Arkansas Pine Bluff and Arkansas Monticello Boll Weevil, which is just tremendous.
I love these schools that I've never heard of. No, I think that you can get a very good, productive power player from the lower levels. Maybe you don't find Caleb Williams, but there's plenty of linemen and linebackers who have come up from those lower levels that have been productive college players that have helped their teams win games. I don't know if I view that as like a lotto ticket center. Like was Jared Verse a lotto ticket? Maybe. He did. Like, but I don't know.
Lotto tickets a sucker bet. That's what Eric's saying, and he's right. Lotto tickets a sucker bet. If you have a casino nearby, go play a hand of blackjack using basic strategy. You have a much better chance of winning.
You're not paying $2 to win the lottery. You're paying $2 to fantasize for 5 hours about what it would be like to win it.
I know, Ari. It's still a sucker bet.
You know what I think is funny?
You of all people should understand that.
No, I know it's a sucker bet. I also buy them all the time because I love it. I love. They have the phone app now where you can just buy 20 lottery tickets. They'll go into the gas station and feel like a loser. So I do that sometimes, but I like to go to bed at night.
It's funny though, because that phone app could help me, not because I buy lottery tickets. It could help me if I could avoid standing behind the person who's got their lottery booklet out.
Oh, that's the worst thing in the world.
And spends 25 minutes when I'm just trying to buy a soda.
Yeah.
But that person is never going to use their phone to buy lottery tickets. Never.
That person who stands over the counter and is looking at the scratch offs of
yes,
I want that one and I want that one. I was just like, can I just please buy my Coke Zero and get the frick out of here? Yeah, that's me every day.
Yeah. Bless you to the gas stations that have come out with the automatic checkout, where you just put everything in a little box and it scans it immediately, and you just tap to pay and you're gone.
They just have the
I love
lottery
you.
scratch-off tickets, like, the vending machines that they have in grocery stores where you can like put the money in and then hit it yourself, and then it comes out, and then it's always the scanning of the lottery ticket. Also, too, when I buy scratch-offs, I don't even scratch it off. I just have them scan the back. I don't even waste the time. I'll buy it at the counter, and I'll just be like, scan this and see if it hits. And if it hits, then they give me the money. And if not, I don't even do the order thing.
All right. Next question. This is from Chris. You talked a lot this week about Notre Dame and Clemson scheduling agreement. I couldn't agree more with Ari more that scheduling these big games should be viewed as an opportunity to get a quality win instead of potential for a loss. I'm a Georgia Tech fan, and taking a look at our schedule over the next few years, it seems like RAD agrees. This leads to the questions. Does Georgia Tech have the hardest upcoming non-conference schedule in the country? 2027 might be the hardest I've seen on paper since the 90s. And since we all have rankings, how would you rank the hardest non-cons in the country? So 2025, this year, at Colorado to start, which I think is a fun week 1 game. They also have Gardner Webb and Temple, and of course they end with Georgia. So that one's not that bad. Next year, Colorado, Tennessee, Mercer, Georgia. That's pretty rough. 2027, Arkansas State, at Tennessee, at Notre Dame, Georgia. And then, of course, 2030 and 31, you've got Alabama home and away, and Georgia both those years too. So, yeah, the Yellow Jackets are loading up there.
I mean, I do think we probably should like have a show and rank who has the toughest non-conference schedule, because I don't know.
Let's do it.
I mean, the one that jumps off
in these next few weeks.
Florida State.
Yeah.
You have to play Alabama to open the year and at Florida to close it. Like, that's a pretty rough.
Right. I think like last year, Florida's on paper was the hardest going into the season because we didn't know what Florida State was going to be. So their non-conference last year was Miami, UCF, Florida State. I'm blanking on the other one because it was not. Oh, Samford was the other one. But yeah. So yeah, I mean I think it's probably always going to be some mix of Clemson, Georgia, Georgia Tech, Florida, Florida State.
I think if you have two,
and South Carolina, because of those rivalries.
If you have two non-conference games that you could conceivably lose, that's very difficult.
Yeah, like South Carolina always has a hard non-conference game because they always play Clemson. And now that South Carolina is good again, Clemson always has a hard one. Georgia Tech always has a very hard one because they have to play Georgia. Florida and Florida State, when they're both good, always have a hard non-conference game. Like that, I always laugh. I used to have fun with the people like when they'd say, Florida never leaves the state. I'm like, yeah, but they played a team that finished. They played a non-conference game against a team that finished in the top 4 of the AP poll 14 years in a row. Name me another school that did that. And they're like, they didn't do that. I'm like, yeah, they did. Florida State. Like Florida State was top 4 every year for 14 years.
Yeah, but let's go through this year and see who's
well, I say we'll table that for next week because I think that's a fun topic next week.
I mean, Clemson opens with LSU and closes with South Carolina, so they've got a pretty tough situation too. But let's do that next week. I know we should do a written one too of like, here are the toughest non-conference schedules you'll find.
Oh, one more question from Chris. He said, "Where did you eat during the national championship?" So that would be the night before the national championship game. Heard Ari references as being a dynamite meal in a previous episode. Never heard the actual restaurant. Next time you're in town, check out Fred's Meat and Bread in Krog Street Market. The Korean Philly is life-changing. We ate at La Sparrow, which was awesome. Fantastic. Everything on the menu was outstanding. Because we tried to order as much of the menu as we could so everybody could get a taste of everything. It was spectacular.
Yeah, we went with Bruce Feldman, Stuart Mandel, one of Stu's friends. And
then Nicole and her coworkers from NBC, Nicole Auerbach, happened to be at a table across from us at the same time. And
Ralph Russo was there.
They were giving me fries. It was amazing. So
we had we basically ordered the entire meal and everybody was letting you eat up. That's the best type of meal, isn't it? Where it's not a family style restaurant, but then when everybody at the table agrees, let's do this family style. And like I got a burger, you got some lasagna dish, and we were all cutting it up and giving it to everybody else. That is so good. Best type of meal, though, isn't it? Because me, I'm a variety guy.
Agreed.
And also that slice that we got in Atlanta, that pizza slice. what was the shopping center?
That was in Pont City Market. I can't remember the name of the place.
Yeah, I can't remember the place. There's a New York pizza place that sells by the slice in Pont City Market that we went to that I thought was electric too.
Yeah. All right. That just gets me pumped up by getting on the road again, because we were making some plans for the future for preseason camp tours and that sort of thing.
Being away from
we can have some fun
is very advantageous for my belt line though.
Yeah. Yeah, I get in trouble when I have friends that I can take to places.
Yeah,
that gets me in trouble too. So we'll be in the best shape of our lives when we get back together, and unfortunately, it won't last long.
Yeah. Have you go back
one more
and my face in the replays of the of this coming August's episodes, and then look at my face at the playoff reveal and tell me if there's a difference?
Side by side is going to be incredible. Yeah. Wait, we should do a side by side on the year anniversary. So on September 1st, we'll do a side by side of Ari when he joined On3 and Ari now.
We should, because the picture that On3 uses for me in all their graphics, I'm 35 pounds heavier than I am right now, and it kills me. Come see Ari and Andy at the Culver station at the NFL draft, and people don't. What's that gremlin that's on the billboard?
Well, and we had a listener come by who's lost 250 pounds.
No, it looked great.
It was incredible.
Is that my face looks rounder when my beard gets longer, so I've got to be a better. I look different, don't I? Than that.
Yes, yeah, you've slimmed down considerably since that photo.
I don't like that picture. Look at the man tit on the right there. Okay,
we'll take new pictures.
Okay,
all right. Speaking of people who are in great shape, let's talk about David. Longtime listener to the show, dating back to the athletic days. To this day, my favorite, at least most memorable show was in fall of 2023 when Andy ate an entire bottle of Bijan Mustardson. Yeah, that was delicious while happening. Pretty rough 45 minutes about 3 hours later. Just saying. If you like mustard, use it sparingly. That day, I was in the throes of training for the Chicago Marathon and was in the middle of my 20-mile long run, which if you've never trained for a marathon before, that's the long one, the longest of the long runs. You guys helped me through that long run and many runs since then. I'm so glad y'all reunited on On3. This is a long shot, but I figured you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. I'm running the 2025 Chicago Marathon with the Pat Tillman Foundation. I'm sure you guys know Pat Tillman's story, so I don't need to go into detail about that. But being from a family full of veterans, it was really important for me to run for a charity that benefited vets and also had a college football tie-in. I would absolutely love it if you guys wouldn't mind tweeting out my fundraising link or dropping a mention of it on your show. I've paid my marathon reservation out of pocket already, so every penny donated through my fundraising page goes directly to helping veterans and their families. Here's the link if you decided to do so. So if you're listening to this show or you're watching this show, the link is in the description on the YouTube page. It's also in the description on your Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and you can just click it and you can help David out and help the Pat Tillman Foundation out as well. And I just think this is so cool because I've done one marathon and I remember the training runs, and I remember this was back podcast didn't exist when I did this. It was 2006. It would have been so nice to have podcasts for those long runs, and I'm so glad we could help David with those. And this is obviously a great cause that he's running for. I'll tweet the link out as well. But if you can help David and help Pat Tillman Foundation out, that would be awesome. And any of you other guys, if you're doing, stuff for a good cause, let us know. If we can help, we'd love to help.
Yeah. Also, I envy you people who are able to run 17 miles while just gracefully listening to a podcast. I'm panting and can't breathe. I don't know how you do it, but I'm happy.
On your 17-mile run, sorry.
My 17-mile runs are in the car.
Yeah, River's got the QR code up on the screen now. If you're watching on the YouTube, that QR code will also take you to David's link.
Yeah, I exercise, but I don't know how people are listening to podcasts while they do. It's I'm jealous. I wish it.
It was Greg McElroy who told us he listens to us while he lifts.
I can understand that because at least you're sitting at the edge of the bench recovering, or you have recovery periods where
we're great recovery talk, but we're not great.
If you're in the middle of
under the bar when in the squat rack, I don't want to hear me squawking while I'm trying to squat.
Yeah.
But all of you who do listen while you work out, God bless you. I love you.
Yeah.
I am so impressed.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
Ari, been a pleasure. got a couple things tomorrow. Our friend Tyler Shoemaker is coming in. We had a suggestion in the chat to have a show or even a set of shows explaining how to gamble on college football. So Tyler Shoemaker from VSiN, the Vegas Sports and Information Network, is the guy that Ari likes to follow when he's looking for action. And Tyler's going to explain how the system works, how you can take advantage of that, how you can find the best value lines. So it's a great conversation. Also, not guaranteed. We're hoping. We're hopeful. We're confirmed. So we're hoping. Maybe Ole Miss quarterback Austin Simmons, who's graduated or graduating. I can't remember when Ole Miss's graduation is, but he's like 19. So yeah, he's going to be Ole Miss's starting quarterback. He's also a super genius.
Can't wait to relive us and our jaws dropping when we saw him do that drive
in the Georgia game.
Can't wait to have him.
Yeah, I'm sure nobody ever brings that up to him.
Ever.
I'm sure nobody's ever like, man, I saw you against Georgia.
Yeah, no, I'm sure he'll be living that again for the first time. So I'm super excited. Can't wait to, get on the horn with him and, of course, present it to you guys. Thanks for being here and appreciate you guys so much.
We'll talk to you tomorrow.